Audio Jungle.
Thank you for joining us. You have found CLA, the Laundry Association, in our monthly free webinar about getting into the laundry industry, how to start a laundromat. And it's our pleasure to provide this service each and every month for those of you that are looking to buy or build your first laundromat. Or judging from the chat, some of you are already well along your way of doing that by joining the association, and you've got a good head start on what's happening. And this is also an opportunity for some of you to connect with one another. Sometimes it's nice to have a study buddy or someone who's going through the same process that you might be in terms of doing your research on getting into the industry. Um, the other housekeeping item before we jump right in is that we are recording, and you will get a copy of the material here. So that's the question that comes up each and every time. And yes, we are happy to record and share out the content here so you can follow along. Certainly welcome to take notes now, but we will, like I said, be sharing this all out with you. So let's go ahead and jump in. First, I'd like to share who are we? What are we doing here? So, CLA is the National Trade Association for the Laundromat Industry. We are celebrating our 65th anniversary, so we've been around more or less the entire lifespan of this amazing industry, serving laundromat professionals. Like a lot of associations, we have some basic sort of buckets of offerings, everything from education and networking opportunities, sort of like we're providing here this afternoon, but also events. We're also heavily involved in industry advocacy when it comes to the government affairs and taking care of your best interest as an industry. And also we have a number of business solutions that I'll make mention of along the way, things that we were able to do through our strength in numbers and expertise to support you when you become that first-time laundromat owner. And so we'll be talking some more about what the association has to offer along the way. But I think will prove to be a great resource as you pursue this journey. And who are these fine folks on screen here? I'll make a quick introduction. My name is Brian Wallace. I serve as president and CEO of CLA. I'm very proud to have been on board with the association coming up on 34 years or so. So I've had a whole career to focus on learning from industry professionals, beating the trail, trying to stay on top of trends, what works and what doesn't. And my main job is more of the academic in this conversation to try to synthesize and share out what has been gathered across all that time. I'm also obviously leading our day-to-day operations here and would be part of your membership experience should you decide to come on board with us. But even more importantly, I've got a very special guest, Yvette Morton Williams. She is a member of our board of directors, our executive committee, and is a true in the field practical expert in operating stores. She's got 5 stores in Metro Atlanta. Yvette, welcome once again. Non-core Performance is my special guest on the monthly webinar. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am happy to be here, and it's always good to join you, Brian. And I am loving that we have so many people who have joined us from all over the country. This is super exciting.
Well, we're lucky to have you. And so as we go through some of the prepared material, I've got a few questions for Yvette. As we get into your questions, again, ideally through the question and answer portal in the Zoom, she'll be helping us answer some of these questions from her experience and her perspective. So I think we've got a good combination here that we can be working through. Really just, I guess, from the top, what I wanted to share is kind of what we're here to do and what we're not here to do. We think that as part of our stewardship mission on behalf of the industry to provide education and resources to those of you that are thinking about getting into the business. I don't think it's part of our mission to sell you or recruit you into the business. Certainly, we would welcome you and want to support you, but it's really about giving you an overview of what you need to know more about and whether or not this is something that's a good fit for you going forward. And we do think that we can sort of differentiate our support and our content as a vetted, authoritative, long-standing resource. There is a lot of information out there in the social media space. A lot of it is very helpful, and I'm glad that there's more information out there. But you can imagine that we're going to steer away from the kind of the hype and the hyperbole, some of the information that's out there that may not be a direct and accurate representation of our industry. So we're going to kind of take it from that perspective. We're not going to find you a laundromat in 30 days or 15 days, or find you seller financing, or find you a free laundromat, or find you an absentee business or a passive business. But we are going to tell you a lot about just in a tremendous industry, and one that if you put in the work and the investment, I think can be very successful for you. So that's kind of our mission statement at the top. And I know Yvette is on board with that based around on her own experience in the industry. So let's
Absolutely.
let's jump into the first couple of slides here. And again, I'm looking for those questions to start populating. But let's kind of give the overhead view here of the industry, where it stands today. First of all, a little bit of nomenclature: coin laundry, coin-op laundry, launderette, lavanderia. I was in Texas last week, so I have to say washateria,
Right.
launderette, and all these other things. And really, what we're talking about is the way I would put it is a retail self-service laundry. In other words, a store, a laundromat. And I guess what I'm distinguishing is the vended laundry equipment that you might find in an apartment or condo or dormitory or some other kind of multifamily space. So we're talking about the corner laundromat. And with that, there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 of these locations in the US. Sales volume, depending on what resource, $6 or $8 billion in sales through the industry. Another part of the tail of the tape is the facility size. And so we do an annual benchmarking survey, which is one of the benefits of being a member, is accessing this data. And most recently, put that number at 2,850 square feet. So that's a mean, right? So that's sort of what the average looks like. We have stores that vary quite a bit. And Yvette, I imagine even among your locations, there's some variety in size. So what can you help people understand a little bit from what size of stores you have, and what that might have to say about it?
Sure. I will say that all of my stores fall within those ranges between
Okay.
1,000 and 10,000. So
Okay.
definitely. And we go from about 2,500 to about 6,000 square feet.
Okay. And so what's special about the 6,000? Why did that store get built at that size? Because I think it's going to illustrate some of the things that we'll talk about next.
Sure. Interestingly enough, well, and you know this, that the average size of stores in the industry have has grown. So
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
jumped in 2010, and our first store, which is under 5,000 square feet, was enormous at that time. It felt really big. And
Sure.
now it does not feel that big at all. I see a lot of people with 5, 6, 7,000 square feet stores. They're just growing as as time passes. And initially, interestingly, the 6,000 square foot store, that space was available years before we jumped on it. And I thought it was too big. And I passed on it. I was looking at a smaller suite in the same plaza. And we worked on that, and for various reasons that didn't happen. I moved away and did a couple of other things and other projects, and then came back, and lo and behold, that 6,000 square foot store started looking a lot better, and we decided to go with that. And instead of taking 6,000 square feet and jamming it packed with equipment, we chose to make it a lot more spread out. And I love it. I like that it's so large and the aisles are so big, and there's just so much space in there. And for some people, depending on your personality or your goal, you might feel like it could be wasted space. I've heard that before. but I don't get that feeling at all. We have plenty of space where even when it's crowded, it doesn't, even when all the machines are in use, it doesn't feel crowded, because there's just a lot of space in there. So
Mhm.
for me, that was good, and it's been working well for us.
Well, yeah, it leans into providing the kind of customer experience that you're looking to provide. And the little more elbow room and wider aisles is definitely part of one of the main trends that we're seeing in laundromat design here lately. And so the beauty of the business is that we have very successful members on either end of that scale, depending on the size of the market that they're serving or what the demands are. You imagine in a rural community, maybe 1,000 or 1,200 square foot is great and completely appropriate. I mentioned earlier that we're heading to New York City tomorrow, and we'll see some 8 and 10 or maybe even 12,000 square foot locations, again, based on the population density and demand and so forth. So size does matter, but it's a matter of how you want the store to look and feel to the customers, what's available, and what's appropriate based on the market demand that you see there. Most of our members are leasing their space. Many would aspire to own the real estate if at all possible. Owning the location tends to be a little bit of a headwind for a lot of our folks, either from a financial standpoint or just simply the fact that most of these stores are located in a larger strip center or shopping mall where acquiring the property may not be possible, as opposed to our members that have a standalone location where it might be more feasible to own the real estate. So both models can work. I would say that our members generally aspire to own the real estate if at all possible, certainly over time. And in terms of customer demographic, maybe I'll start with you, Yvette. Who is your sort of avatar, typical customer, if there is one, across your locations?
We get all sorts of customers. So our places range in locations from a pretty densely urban area in Southwest Atlanta to what's considered rural in the Metro Atlanta area. I call it Metro Atlanta, and then I just said rural. Kind of doesn't make that much sense, but it's actually considered rural, and according to the Atlanta Regional Commission. And so we get people that are single people. We get single older people who live by themselves and walk to the place. We have a lot of apartments near our Atlanta location. We have families that are uh, full of children who we love because children make a lot of dirty clothes.
They sure do.
And then we
Yes.
get people that come that are operating their own businesses. They have Airbnb, they've come in. And then we also tend to have, especially in the more rural areas, people that have horses, and they have large items because of their animals. And we welcome them as well. We're very close to the horse park that was built in for the 1996 Olympics. And they have a lot of activities there with horses. And so we welcome all of them. And then many times people think of laundromats and they think that you have to have renters. And while we absolutely love people who rent and don't have washers and dryers in their facilities or in their apartment or their townhouse, we get a lot of homeowners that recognize that for various reasons it's more efficient to wash at a laundromat. They can't wash their big blankets or their winter coats or their smaller rugs at home. And I've even had customers tell us that they prefer to come to laundromat even though they have a washer and dryer at home because they want to save on water bills. Imagine that. So
Sure. Yeah, and just like I said, I think the main, if we had to pick just one thing, I think we help people get it done fast, regardless of volume, right? So we can get it all done at once. And so as the stores improve and are more welcoming, we do see a lot more people that own equipment of their own or have access to equipment in their apartment space, and they, are making that choice to come to the laundromat is a faster, more convenient way to get the chore done. So we love hearing that, and our members are certainly living that on a day-to-day basis. So Great. Well, it's a kind of a table setter of who we are and what we're here to try to do. And I think for the next section, I thought what we could do in this spirit of trying to give you a level-headed look at the industry is I thought we would explore some reasons why our members love the business and why you might want to continue to pursue laundromat ownership yourself. And then I'll balance it off with some of the challenges and obstacles and pitfalls and things that might potentially stand in your way, just to kind of give you a little bit of that balanced perspective. So we've got one question so far in the Q&A box from Devaki. Did your equipment provider help you design the store? Yvette, what would you say to that? I know you, at least the most recent store that I saw, you had added a lot of sort of aesthetic touches from your own
Sure.
palette, so to speak. But what would you say to that question about the equipment distributor's role in getting the store designed?
I would say that it's key and that you want to lean into all of your available resources. And if you're going to be successful in this industry, you won't do it by yourself. You're going to require some knowledgeable and helpful partners. And if you are retooling or building a store from scratch, I will put your distributor at the very top of that list. And absolutely, you want to know what you like, but lean into their expertise
Mm.
on mix of equipment and location of equipment. And it's still okay to have your own opinions, and I have some, and I found that in my favorite projects, it is more of a collaboration and in terms of just the equipment mix and the location. And I have things that I feel like would work better from my sense of design and sense of flow, but I absolutely rely on a good distributor to tell me their thoughts as well.
Yeah, well said. And the equipment distributors play such a pivotal role, and it's a little bit of a dual role if you think about it from the perspective of the store owner, right? You need this expertise, you need this
Sure.
input, but they're also coming from a sales perspective, right? They love to sell you some equipment and love you getting the business. And so, building your sort of your laundry community and your laundry network through the association is a great way to help not just to make those connections, but start to understand where the best fit is for you among the different options that are out there and available. So, no, thank you for that,
Absolutely.
Yvette.
And Brian, what you said before about there are a lot of different ways to do it, and that's the case with designing it as well. There's not one single way that will make you successful. And it's good to know that. And you can kind of put your own flavor in it and make sure though that the basics are there and you would want to rely on, especially early in the journey, the
Mhm.
input from a knowledgeable distributor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great example with the store of yours that I was referring to, where yes, he's got some great interior design and aesthetic flourishes, but it is set in a place that's well equipped, immaculately clean, wide aisles, and very customer friendly environment that you then put your spin on, your take on, and your personality shines through in that type of location. So I think that's a really good example. So well, let's
Thank
dive
you.
into some of the reasons why you may want to pursue your interest in the laundromat industry. And then, like I said, we'll balance that off with some of the challenges. But let's sort of start on the positive side here. There we go. So laundromats at the core service is essential, right? We're providing a means for clean clothes, which is as essential a need as food, shelter, medicine, and any of the other basics that you can think of that folks need. And that essential nature of the business is something that has always attracted people to the industry and something that our members who are successful cite as a rationale as to why they like the industry. Certainly, if we look back to the Great Recession or even more recently the pandemic, the industry's held up pretty well, right? Not recession proof or pandemic proof, but certainly resistant in the sense that we were able to stay open for business in the case of the pandemic. And with respect to the recession, even though the economy was down, people still need to wash clothes, right? So those aren't necessarily welcome or pleasant experiences, but we've shown to be very resilient when it comes to some of those outside factors, and that's something that has always impressed our members. Another element that I hear quite a bit over my now 3 decades plus of doing this is our members appreciate the simplicity of the business, the straightforward nature of the business, the sort of self-evident keys to success of the business, but that doesn't mean that it's easy, right? And if you've done any looking around at stores in your area, you probably see a number of locations that are, while it might be simple, are not executing on some of these basics that are imperative to your success, whether that be seeing machines that are out of order or a store that's not clean, so a store where you may not be finding the right level of customer service, or that there's some issue with the location, whether it's a lack of parking, or it's hard to find from the street, or there's not an easy ingress and egress. So, these are some of the basics that lead to success. And really, like in most businesses, those that can execute on these simple principles do well, and those that are not able to, have sort of the opposite experience. So, that's kind of what I mean by simple but not easy. And when it comes to this notion of a passive business, or kind of a show up once a week to collect the quarters, as some might characterize the industry, certainly you can do that, but you may not reach the level of success that you might otherwise achieve by being attentive and being a proactive operator. And this is where I want to bring Yvette back in, because what I hear a lot, Yvette, over time, is sort of, aside from profitability, is sort of that lifestyle consideration where you're sitting outside of one of your stores right now. You had something to attend to at one of your locations. You're not off on the beach somewhere. How do you address this when people bring this to you about this? Is this passive or absentee, or kind of what's your typical day in a life or week in a life look like when it comes to attending to your 5 locations?
Well, Brian, to your point, you've said it a number of times, and I will say it here. There is not one way to run it, and you can run your business however you choose to run your business. And there is no right or wrong way. There may be a way that's more profitable or more
Hmm.
efficient, but it doesn't make it wrong. Some people knowingly trade additional revenue for time.
Hmm. Sure.
And there's no wrong way to do that. So that's something that you want to consider. And a good thing about being a business owner is that you get to make those decisions and what works for you. And keep in mind, what works well for you today may not have worked well for you a couple of years ago. I left the example about that store that I thought was too big, and then I came back 2 years later and I thought that that was a good size. And it may be the same with running our business. I have timing that works better than other time, and I'm able to focus more and be there all the time. And then sometimes I'm not able to, and I recognize that I'm probably giving up something during that time. But it works to have systems in place and to expand your staff and to make sure that you have well supported, well trained staff that can be there and do things when you aren't able to. And I'll say, unfortunately, there likely isn't anybody who's going to look at your business the way that you look at it and care about your business the way that you care about it. So if you find someone that does a pretty good job, you should do your very best to recognize that and to keep them. But I have days where I am um, not required to be in the store, don't have to go. There's rarely a day where there's not something administrative that I have to attend to, between coordinating with our partner companies, our marketing firm, some employee issues, or accountant, or talking to somebody about insurance, or any other utility, or someone that wants to work with us to do fill in the blank. There always seems to be some administrative work that has to be done. I no longer have times where I'm doing shifts in the store, but I
Mhm.
did a lot of that, lot of doing shifts, working, folding clothes, cleaning floors, cleaning bathrooms. I've done all of it. I still have time where I have to work, and I'm doing administrative work and making sure that my team is supported in whatever way helps them to be successful. So there is not
Good.
really a typical day for me.
Hmm.
I wish I could say that it were. Some days there's a huge plumbing issue and I have to drop everything and get to the store or make sure that I have my plumber, who is probably one of my favorite people, and has to be. I want to make sure that I remain one of
That's
his.
a real practical piece of advice. Kind of the inside. If you know, you know. Be good friends with your plumber and be
Be
good to your
good
plumber.
friends. Make sure
Uh,
they like you. You treat them well. You pay them fast,
that
and
is,
you answer quickly, and more likely they will do the same for you because you will need them. There's some
yeah.
things that you aren't going to be able to unclog on your own or to fix on your own. So yeah,
Well,
so some days like that, and then some days where I can go and be on the
mhm.
beach. Today's not one of them, but that does happen too.
Sure. Well, and one thing I know about you is that your tool bag is never too far
Right.
from your reach. And you mentioned early on taking shifts in the store, before you fully built out your team and reached a little bit of scale. But I think that folks would be interested to hear a little bit about the repair and maintenance component and maybe how you handled it early on, because I know you're very hands-on, and maybe how you have gotten a little bit of help in that regard as you
Sure.
grew the business.
Sure. And I've heard some people say that you won't be successful if you don't repair your own machines. And I disagree with that. You can absolutely be successful, as we've said a lot of times, and there's no one way to do it. It certainly helps to be able to repair your own machines, or at least to know what is required to repair your own
Mhm.
machine so that you are able to do it if you want to, or if you like to, or if you don't have the resources initially to have somebody else do it. It's good to be able to do it. And I did, as Brian mentioned, do a lot of that initially. I learned quickly and I found I enjoyed it. It's a good sense of accomplishment to go in and know that you were the reason that the out of order signs are down. And then we worked with getting people on board, hiring employees to do maintenance. And I'd like to have somebody who can do maintenance and do some other sort of handiwork as well. So it's not just the machines. And depending on the stores that you own and the age of the equipment, which is huge, because as you may expect, the longer you've had it and the older it is, the more repairs are typically required to keep it running. So more time spent fixing it and then more money spent on parts. But I have done that, and now I found that it's a good mix to have somebody on board, but then also to have a person that can come in that's not on payroll sometimes when needed, and just throw everything at it when you need to.
Yeah, well, next to that valued relationship with a local plumber, a local independent machine repair person is also nice to have when you don't have time, or maybe it's a higher level repair that might go beyond your capability. It's good to kind of build out that team and have those folks
Absolutely.
available to you. And so, yeah, and this last point here, while we're talking about the reasons why our members love the business, is that individual sort of, we'll call it mom and pop operators like Yvette have been able to build A-plus stores, on their own for their own benefit. And it's a highly fragmented industry. While we are seeing some trends with respect to multi-store ownership, and again, a good example here with Yvette, some franchising that's entered into the space. As it stands today, we have got individual members every day of the week that are building great stores on their own, and meaning on their own, not necessarily part of a larger organization, but with the support from the association, their distributor, building out their local network of experts to help them along the way. So a lot of reasons that people are excited about the business, and we certainly have noticed a lot of this positive interest that's come to the business on social media and elsewhere. And so we're glad that you're here. So it's not all rosy and perfect. There are some challenges that will come your way, just like any other business. And so there's a couple things that I wanted to share, and then we can hear from Yvette about some of her experiences that she might want to share. One of the things that I'm hearing an awful lot of here lately is just sort of under this category of sort of inventory and scarcity. Um, when I'm talking with a lot of new investors and helping them every day as we do, there's just a lot of interest in, particularly with the existing stores. So depending on the market that you're in, there may be a big long list of plenty of stores for sale that you can sort of vet through and choose what you want. But more likely of late, that list is a bit shorter and maybe not as available as it may once have been. And the same holds for building out on new locations because again, the best locations by definition are scarce and take some time in looking. I was visiting, this is an extreme example. I was visiting with a member in Houston last week. They went 18 years between store one and store two. We were there the day before they were opening store two. And I just said, well, why? And he said, well, I was really holding out for a piece of real estate that I could own that I thought would be perfect for a laundromat. And of course, he had done other entrepreneurial things in between. But that finding that great location is part of the deal. So one of the reasons I like to include this item on the slide is that you have to, there's some patience and some discipline that's involved in finding the right location and or the right store to buy. So that's not a negative per se, but it's more about sort of setting expectation, knowing that it could take a little bit of time to be there. So Yvette, taking a little bit of time to find the right opportunity to acquire or to build on, does that resonate with you?
Oh my gosh, yes. Absolutely it does. And you've probably heard me talk about this before. I know I've mentioned it on a couple of webinars about our start in New Jersey. And we initially were living in New Jersey and looking for a laundromat there, and that was just not happening. After many, many months, it was nearly a year, and made the decision for a lot of reasons, family being a big part of it, to come back down to the Metro Atlanta area. And then we found a place there that had been listed for sale relatively recently by a broker, and then that deal went pretty quickly. But it didn't take me 18 years between one and two, but it did take quite a while. It was more like 7 years between number one and number
Mhm.
two. And it just matters that you are confident in where you're going, and that you don't rush it, and then you sometimes you need to wait till your capital is right, or you're always going to make sure your capital is right before you move forward. And depending on where you are in your journey, it may or may not work for you, but patience is key, and it helps to wait until you find a place that is right for you, whatever that criteria is that you set for yourself. And for me, location is a big part of it, meaning proximity to the center of everything else that I have going on in my life. And then the demographics. And if you are intent on owning a place and owning the building, then that may take a little longer as well. But yeah, you're right. And Brian, I talked to a lot of people who are interested in getting into this industry now, and that hasn't changed. I would expect or suspect that it's probably even lengthened the amount of time that it may take just to find the right place for now. We're in a time that I've never seen it like this, and I certainly haven't been around 3+ decades like you, but it's been 16, almost 17 years now for us, and it is. I've never seen it with this much interest in this industry, and the amount of inquiries that every operator is getting and all the distributors are getting. It's very, very active. So that time to
Yeah.
find the right place may take a little bit longer.
Yeah, no, well said, and and certainly lived a lived experience for you. Next up here, I just have this notion of kind of engagement with the general public. If any of you have ever worked retail, you know that there's occasional trials and tribulations when it comes to dealing with the public, and I think it's important for you to at least be somewhat, circumspect about, what is a good fit for you or not. And one of my favorite pieces of advice along these lines is go do some laundry, folks. Go do some laundry, put two loads of towels in your trunk as you're thinking about the business and you pass a laundromat and you have a few minutes, stop in and do some laundry. If it's close to home, you're going to start doing some market research as a byproduct. But you're also going to gather ideas of what you like and what you don't like. And ultimately, you have to decide, is this some place where you want to be spending your time? And sometimes these are located in little tougher neighborhoods. Yvette, I know you've got a range of uh,
I do
locations.
it, and I'm not the one to be frightened away by tough neighborhoods. Like I can hang with them, but it's not for everybody, and you should
Mhm.
know that and be aware of where you are planning to plunk down a lot of money. So that's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, I think she was a marketing or real estate professional who joined a few months back, and I gave this advice, and she called me up. She said, Brian, I'm going to be the shortest lived member you've ever had. You guys are great. I learned a lot, but I went out and did laundry, and that's just an environment just not for me. And I congratulated her. I said, that's great. Figure that out now
Absolutely.
before you get too far along and you've already made a commitment to be there. So it's not a dangerous business, folks. I'm just saying that it's something that you need to be aware of, and just depending on where you're operating from, make sure that you know what you're getting into. And the number one thing that I've run into, this part is no different than it was 30 years ago than it is today, is first time entrepreneurs that are just trying to pull together the resources to do their first store. So there's certainly no shame in that, and I'll let Yvette talk about that here in a sec about her experience. But for most people, it does take a little bit of creativity and looking at multiple sources of funding and really trying to kind of stitch together what it's going to take to do your first store. Now, some of you may be experienced business owners and you're ready to stroke a check and you can do this without any outside help. But I would say 90% plus of the people that I talk to on a day in, day out basis are working through this challenge of pulling together the financial resources that it's going to take to do the first laundromat. So I'll quickly kind of give you some framing for that, and then we'll see if Yvette has some comments for us about this particular challenge. So in terms of how much you're going to need, you know, the notion of buying an existing store and acquisition, it's pretty straightforward. There's an asking price, and in terms of whether you're doing conventional financing or laundry specific financing, and I have a slide for you on that here in a minute, you're typically going to be needing that 30%, maybe a bit more in cash down to bring to the table. When it comes to doing a build out of a new store, it's a little bit more complicated, a bit more variables in terms of determining what that project cost is going to look like. And there are lots of variables here. But if we're kind of going into an existing space, whether it be sort of a white box, vanilla box, or even something that's being used for a different purpose now, and turning it into a laundromat, so that's the leasehold improvements, construction, utilities, buying the equipment, installing the equipment. I ask this question everywhere I go in terms of what the per square foot cost is, and I think that starting at $300 or $400 a square foot is sort of where I'm seeing most of these projects fall in. I'm seeing plenty that are exceeding the $400 or even $500, depending on the market, and some that are being able to do it for a little bit less. But I didn't want to share with you that this is one of the major headwinds, but not try to give you some context for it. But anything short of a real quote on a real project is really just an estimate. And so, but I want to kind of give you some sense of what you're going to need. And again, in this circumstance, the same, you're probably going to need that 30%, maybe a little bit more when it comes to getting that off the ground. So Yvette, I know that you're familiar with this struggle to kind of get that first store up and operating and needing to pull from multiple sources and get a little creative to get your first store under your belt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with everything you said. It's not it takes some capital to make it happen. And then not only does it take capital to get started, but ideally you want to make sure you have some capital that you can go back and draw from after you're up and running, because you don't want to spend every dime just getting in the place and getting the doors open and then realize that the sales, while they're increasing, they aren't increasing quite as fast as you need it. Or something else came up that you hadn't counted on and requires more money and you're tapped out. So keep all of that in mind as you move forward.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
another well earned piece of advice is don't open the store with your last dollar because you're going to need some of that working capital. You're going to need to market the business. I just was talking to a member this morning from Northern California that was asking about some contingencies and everything from if you're buying a store, money to we brought up the example of changing the locks
Right.
to a piece of equipment that's out of order, just things that pop up along the way. So no different than a home project or anything else that you've been involved in, reserving some dollars for overspend, is certainly smart to do that. So let's take a little reset. We're about halfway through, both in time and what we have here for material. We appreciate that you're here with us. We're learning from Yvette and her real life experience in the field. A couple questions have come up here that we'll address, but I'll remind everybody because it came up. We are recording and we will be sharing out the content. So if you joined a little bit late, that's okay. We've got your back. We'll have this material here available to help you. So I'm going to jump into a couple of questions before we get into the next phase. Brad asked a question about a pre-built Excel financial model for acquisitions. We certainly can help you with that, Brad. We have that type of material available to our members in terms of templates, and we can kind of walk you through some of those things. Those that are members also will sometimes share some of those projections with me on a consultative basis, and we're always happy to take a look, as be a second pair of eyes, maybe have a few questions that come to mind. Sometimes we're in a position to make referrals to some of our volunteer leaders who are always willing to help out. So we can certainly help you with that. Edwin's asking about how to acquire a business loan in order to purchase the laundromat. So again, we'll get into that a little bit more in just a minute, Edwin. But yes, there are a number of sort of industry specific or captive lenders that specialize in the laundromat business. And we'll kind of walk you through what that looks like here in just a moment. Um, uh, I will state that we are brand agnostic here at the association, and so we're not going to be comparing brand A to brand B. But Yvette, there's a question here about G-force, high G versus lower G. Do you care to weigh in on that I guess that it's framed up here as attracting business from competitors by 200G versus higher G. Does that um, um, mean something to you in terms of how you've decided to do at least your most recent stores?
Yeah, we've got stores from 100 all the way to 450G, and it is it. I would say that it does get people in and out faster if you've got a higher G force. Um, I don't know that well, I'll say this. You can be very successful with the store at any G-force. I will say that. I've seen
Mhm.
it. I've lived it, and I know that that's not the only thing that's going to determine your success. There is a cost associated with higher G-force, as well as in terms of getting the equipment in there. And so you have to decide if that's something that you can handle, and if you want to spend it, and recognize that people will come back to places where they feel welcome, where they feel safe, and where it's clean. And I love it when my team members can call the customers by name, and they can talk to them about their child that just graduated and that the baby that's coming, and about their job that they were having problems with. And people will drive past competitors for that. No doubt about it. So
Mhm.
keep that in mind too. G-force is great and fast is good. To be in and out is great. But if you focus on that customer experience and in all of the other ways, then the G-force is just one of the things within that mix.
No, I think that's well said. And I think also your brand and marketing has something to say about that too. I've certainly seen members that will, lean into, speed as part of their branding. So
Mhm.
I think I fully agree you could be successful, but it just in terms of where your marketing goes and where your branding goes may reflect that as well.
Sure.
One of the common questions that we have come up is, what are these things worth? And it's not an easy question to answer, and it's probably a 3-hour topic that we'll try to do in 3 minutes, but at least want to kind of give you a little bit of an overview when it comes to valuation. So a little bit more art than science, one could argue, but we'll go for it here. So, depending on how you want to define it, these are typically valued on a multiple of the net on an annualized basis. Net to me means the operating income, meaning, just looking at the direct expenses of operating the business. Typically, people aren't accounting for depreciation as an expense, for example, or sometimes a business owner will have some may have a car allowance or a cell phone or something attached to the business. So really, it just I think it makes sense to focus just really on what those operating expenses, taken away from the top line revenue, will look like. Um, the history tells us that most will end up selling in the range of 3 to 5 times the net. That's not a hard and fast rule. It doesn't mean that that's what they're worth. That's what they sell for. There are stores that sell for less and stores that will sell for more based on some factors I'm going to share in just a moment. I will say that based on this environment that we described earlier about demand and interest in the business and perhaps scarcity of stores available for sale in some of the markets, we have seen valuations tending to trend higher these days. And some might even argue that the stores have never been more valuable than they are today. But it is sort of calibrated on a couple other factors that I think are probably more important, frankly, than the multiple itself, is just understanding what sort of contributes to that valuation. And so net income, as I said, is a big factor, and you can imagine that bigger stores, higher volume stores are in higher demand, so that's always kind of a factor to take into consideration. The age and condition of the equipment is a major factor in terms of what you are willing to offer when it comes to the store, particularly in the sense that that equipment replacement and the capital recapitalization cycle of the business is really important in terms of what you might be willing to offer for the business, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a sec. But thirdly, it's the terms and conditions of the lease, and so this is really on the basis that, for all intents and purposes, practically speaking, you can't pick up and move a laundromat. So when the lease is up, you're essentially out of business, right? So the duration, of course, the cost is a good factor. We'll talk about some expense ratios here in a moment. But having that duration is really important. So if you kind of picture, here's the cash flow of the business, and it's protected by a lease for a finite amount of time, right? And once that time runs out, then you're not guaranteed to continue. You're really at the mercy of the landlord. So with that being said, to oversimplify it, the uh, the newer the equipment and the longer the lease, the more the store is worth. And the older the equipment and the shorter the lease, the less the business is typically worth. And so there's a lot in between there, but that and again, in kind of an oversimplification, kind of gets you to where we see the valuation criteria come from. So
Right.
um, that is important, and also there's other factors like due diligence, right? Understanding that you need to be able to verify the income and the expenses, by the way. This is on a net basis, so it's just as important, in my view, to verify the expenses as it is to verify the income. And again, when anytime you're looking at a store, those are sort of internal factors. We also have to look at the external factors in terms of the competitive landscape, both in sort of quantity and quality. So, Yvette, any words of wisdom when it comes to valuation that you like to share?
Yeah, yeah, thanks for that. I would say that the points you've mentioned here are also really important if you are not just purchasing a store, but if you're thinking to put a store there where there wasn't one, and keep all of that in mind. And I am always interested when people hold on tightly to the 3 to 5 times multiple. If you consider that the this is a place that you want, I'm assuming if you're looking at it, you really want it for whatever reason. Don't discount the fact that the timing and the location are important, and you get to decide how important they are to you. If it's a place that really works for you and checks a lot of boxes, 5 times may not be enough to express the value that it will bring to you. And I don't know that there is no multiple for building a store. So you aren't paying based on a multiple of
Right.
revenues when you're building
Mm-hmm.
a place either.
Mm-hmm.
So you're
Mm-hmm.
putting down a lot of money with zero income there, um, and projected income. But if you see a place that is uh, working for you in a lot of other areas, and the multiples don't fall within the 3 to 5, I would say particularly in this market, keep that in mind. And I'm not the one saying that you need to go and pay 10 times multiple, but don't get too caught up in that if everything else works for you, particularly if it's a place that you know you can bring value to, and you expect that for whatever reason it hasn't been
Mm-hmm.
operating at the level that you will have it operate, and
Yeah.
you anticipate that you can see some improvement there
No,
as well.
that's super helpful. And again, this is kind of the industry shorthand that we've become accustomed to, but I'm talking with members
Sure.
all the time that'll want to look at a cap rate, will want to look at a return on investment model based on a number of factors over time, taking into consideration the leverage. Are they borrowing? How much are they borrowing? A
Right.
cash on cash return versus looking at things over a longer period. So it's got to work for you. And yes, am I seeing stores that are going for 6 and 7 at the higher end? Sure. Are there stores? I had a member yesterday that stopped in, and I asked how much time was left on the lease. They were on the way to see a store, and they said, "Well, there's 2 years left on the lease." I'm like, well, that doesn't mean that's worth 3 times. That probably
Right.
means that it's worth, arguably zero. So all these things need to be taken into consideration. And I should point out that we're always happy to do consultations with our members. We have white papers, videos, other resources on all the topics that we're covering here. So what I'd like to do, and we got a few more questions, so keep those coming. I'm going to flip through a couple more basics here, just based on the questions that I see in the Q&A box. A lot of questions on financing, and again, probably a 2-hour topic that we'll cover in 2 minutes. But um, most people are going to need, as we said a moment ago, and from what Yvette shared with her experience, most are going to need to tap into multiple resources in order to make the project happen. So, one option would be a conventional bank loan, and maybe you already have a banking relationship. Maybe you already have a small business, and you have a banker that you work with. Um, for a conventional loan. You may also tap into that local community bank looking for an SBA opportunity that could bring some advantages to you, whether it be a lower down payment or longer terms or better interest rate. But then also knowing that it's a little bit more difficult to navigate that process. But a local bank that is accustomed to that should have sort of an SBA expert on their team that's in a position to help you navigate through. Most of what I see on a day in, day out basis has some engagement with what we'll call kind of a captive lender. In other words, a laundromat specific lender. And so, because going back years now, there wasn't a lot of interest in the laundromat industry, and a lot of these conventional banks weren't doing a lot of small business lending, especially for people perhaps like you that are looking to be first time entrepreneurs, or at least first time in this business and don't have the experience. The industry kind of created its own sort of financing ecosystem to kind of address some of those needs. And so there are a number of industry specific lenders. There's a group that are owned by the equipment manufacturers themselves. And so it's a facility to help finance the purchase of their equipment and help you get into business. Obviously, they have the benefit of not only working through that sale, but in a sense, using their own equipment as collateral is something that's attractive to them that wouldn't be attractive to a conventional lender. There are other captive lenders or industry-specific lenders that are independent, but have good relationships with the various manufacturers and distributors that are engaged in the business. So this is a very common manner of which people are getting their projects financed. And while back in the day it was strictly speaking an equipment finance, many of these folks now have some type of acquisition financing available. You can imagine that it's more available if you're looking to update the equipment at the same time as taking over the business, which is quite often one of the needs, right? If you're looking at a quote unquote zombie mat, there may be a situation where you're buying the business with an eye toward re-equipping it. Um,
Sure. And Brian, I know while you're talking about this, this is a good time. I think some on the call are probably looking to get into the industry and they aren't there yet. Probably a majority of people here, but this is a good time while you're waiting. Make sure that your credit is good.
mm,
And if there's something
mhm.
that you can do in the interim to work on that, just be creative, be productive, use this time to work on that because you will certainly benefit from a lower interest rate when you have a loan that could be, many, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. A little bit of a change in the interest rate can make a significant difference in your payment and in the timing that it'll take you to feel better about your laundromat.
Absolutely. And make sure you're prepared. And in this run up, if Brian's saying it's going to take some time to find the right opportunity, like Yvette said, use that time to make sure that you're as prepared
Right.
as possible, not just from a credit standpoint, but when I talk to these lenders that see hundreds of deals cross their desk every month in the laundromat industry, and I ask the question, how can our members make themselves better better risk, better recipients. And what I hear over and over again is having a complete package. In other words, when you're submitting for the loan, don't do it in parts. Don't do it in pieces. Have your
Right.
complete package together all at once. Don't make them chase you. Hey, we're missing this or this. So when I ask those folks what they're looking for, that's what they tell me is make sure that obviously, like Yvette said, the credit's right, but make sure that you've got a complete package that you're submitting and make it easier for them to get behind your project and support that.
Exactly. And then be responsive, right, Brian? It amazes me when people don't return phone calls. And many times they'll think if you aren't responding before we give you the money, if something goes wrong, they don't have a lot of confidence that you're going to be very responsive then. So put the number in your contacts. Make sure that when that call or text come through or email that you answer immediately and show how excited you are about this project and how responsive you are and that you will have minimal risk of ghosting anybody when it becomes important to talk to you.
So again, very practical, real world advice right
Mhm.
there. No doubt about it. And while you see a lot of conversation on social media about seller financing, it's I said here limited opportunities. It's pretty rare to come across. Although I did speak to a member yesterday who was selling to another member, and they're working out a deal on seller financing. But that is really not a regular thing that you should expect to be available. And let's face it, you need skin in the game. You need to tap into your resources. We frequently will see people partner with friends or family or business associates to try to get the first project off the ground. So you can do it. There are a lot of resources available, but I just want to make sure that we're pointing you in the right direction. Before we jump into a couple of these profitability insights, I wanted to tack back to our Q&A box and see if there's a few more folks we can help here. Um, uh, Anonymous attendee, you can give us the name, it's okay. Asking what's a good resource for basic repair skills and basic maintenance and repair. I guess, Yvette, there's a couple things that I hear quite often, which
Yeah,
is sometimes the local distributors will be putting on a service clinic on their equipment. Those are
yeah,
very important to participate in. I see a lot of as a practical matter, if you are having a technician come in to make a repair, generally they're very happy to have you look over their shoulder and watch them make those repairs. And as you start to learn those kind of three, four most common repairs, you start to kind of follow suit and learn to make those basic repairs. Not just to maybe save you a few dollars, but it's often more of a consideration of uptime and wanting to get that equipment back up and running sooner than later. So, any other resources you would cite, Yvette, in terms of learning how to make repairs?
yeah. I think you listed some great ones, and now there are plenty of videos available online. A lot of the manufacturers are posting videos. It helps with their tech support team because
Mhm.
they all generally employ somebody on the phone to answer questions and they will work with you. But wow, I'm sure they would much rather you go to their video that they posted that answers those questions
YouTube
and
is your
free it.
best friend.
Yeah, YouTube. Yeah, yeah, put in the error code or whatever the problem is and the brand, and a lot of things will come up, and I imagine most of it is pretty good. Probably not everything, but just less in life, take look at what you're seeing through a filter, but it's not a bad place to start.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. No, very, very good. Um, let's see. Just kind of jumping around these questions.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Oh, so Charlotte was asking about this packet I referred to on the last slide in terms of the financing. Well, typically they will have a sort of a checklist of what they're looking for from you. And typically have everything from your sort of your personal financial statement to perhaps a business plan, a pro forma for the project, perhaps the equipment list and the quote. But they will tell you what they're looking for, right? You bet they'll kind of give you a list of things that you need to be that they want
Yeah,
from
your
you in
tax
their
returns, all that good
tax
stuff.
returns.
Your firstborn child. They may want a lot of things, but
It certainly feels like that
yeah.
sometimes, no doubt about it. So, okay, and Kelly, I see your question on due diligence, and let me get back to that in just a moment. But I wanted to work through a couple more things here that I think could be helpful to share. So, obviously the expense ratios are an important part of what we're doing here. So what I wanted to do is share out some data from the benchmarking surveys that we do every year to give you a little bit of direction here. So utilities, I'd like to kind of tee this up as this is essentially your primary variable expense. In other words, the more laundry that comes through that you process, the more utilities you're going to use. And so the efficiency at which you're using those utilities can make a huge difference in the profitability. And so um, the statistical average, the mean that we see through our survey is right at 20%. So every dollar of revenue you're generating, you're paying out 20 cents for water, sewer, gas, and electric. Some markets have higher rates than other markets. Um, if you're looking at an older store to purchase, you might want to do this quick math, and you might find it's at 30% or 32% or 35% of gross, as opposed to this target that I'm sharing, whereas newly equipped stores, brand new stores, or retooled stores that are using the latest and greatest equipment, you may be operating at 15% utility. So you can do your own math. There's a big difference between a store that's running at 16% versus one that's running at 28 or 30 or 32%. So it's a really an important consideration when you start to look at the variable expenses of running the store. Obviously, the more fixed expenses are things like rent and payroll, and these are kind of the big three in terms of operating a store. So I think most of our members, obviously, lower the better, but 20% is kind of a target that I think people will set. The average being closer to 24%, so 20 to 25% on rent, and then payroll. For those of you that are fully attended, is going to be again more that 22 plus percent. You can keep it at any lower than that. That's great as a percentage, but once you get beyond these three items, you're more or less kind of in the single digit territory, if you will, as an expense ratio. All things that are important, but these are the big three. Anything jump out to you on that, Yvette?
Uh, no, I think you nailed it.
Okay, let's go on to the next item here. And again, keep the questions coming. I'm keeping an eye on that other box here on my screen. Okay, so oh, let me go back. So yeah, so again, we have the survey that we do every year, and so there are data that we pull in terms of mean and median gross revenues, but you can cross-tab this. So if you take this back, this would line up with that 2,850 square feet from the first slide. So whatever that is, about $120 a foot in terms of gross sales. In terms of net profitability from our survey, it's popping out at an average of a little over 25%, with a median at 27%. So these are just some guidelines. These aren't guarantees. This isn't what your store is going to do, but at least giving you some statistical analysis of what we see through our surveys. And again, becoming a member of the association, this is one of the immediate deliverables. The rate for membership is at $599. And so we'll talk some more about this a little bit closer to the end, but this is just one reason just by itself. Spend a few $100s before you spend a few $100,000 and make sure that you've got your hands on the best data. And these are things that obviously can help inform your business plan. One of the other really common questions that crosses my desk is, should I buy or should I build? Should I buy? Should I build? Yvette, am I mistaken, or have you done both acquisitions and a build out?
Yeah, I've done both. Yeah.
Okay, so what are those pros and cons based on your experience? And we can let folks kind of read through what's on the screen.
Yeah, as folks are reading through it, and I'm folks, so I wanted to see what you see what else I can add to this because I would, yeah, buying certainly it's proven location, less risk. I don't disagree with that at all. You have you have a customer base that are there already, and that's great. If you're building it, you're hoping that they're going to come. You're pretty sure that they're going to come. But I tell you, I've had some of my most anxious moments when we've first opened, and it seems like you throw a football through the place, and there's not a soul around, and you're like, "What did I do?"
Yeah.
And it can be a little scary. So I would say that all of those are good. It's nice when you can have a place or build a place, and by building, I don't mean the building, but just taking a vanilla shell and or something that it operated as a different business and being able to totally design it from scratch. That's pretty satisfying. It is certainly more expensive, and you're probably going to run into some costs that you don't have if you buy a place, like the fees for connecting to the water or the sewer line, which can be substantial depending
Mhm.
on where you are. So be sure
Mhm.
that you've looked into that before you get too far, and certainly before you've signed any lease agreements. You want to understand if those exist and what they are, and make sure that you have a means of covering that. But
Okay.
then you know, all brand new equipment, it's always fun. Who doesn't like things when they're very bright and shiny and new? I
Yeah.
think we all are, you know, naturally drawn to new and pretty. But you can have a really nice functioning store that's existing. And fortunately, I see a lot of those now that have only been around a year or so and they're up for sale. So there may be pros and cons to why that's going on, but certainly an opportunity to get something that's existing that's not old is out
Yeah.
there also.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think those are all good tips and tricks, and I think that I think I encourage people to do your best to measure each opportunity on its own merit. Whether that's an acquisition or a build out, and just to try to make sure that whichever direction you go, that it pencils out for you and that you're in a good spot. Another caution, this is based on some of my recent travels, and I go to lots of stores and lots of markets, is that sometimes this discussion of an acquisition, you hear infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. And yes, if the right infrastructure is in place, that could be a big savings over building out fresh and new. But make sure you have someone who knows what they're doing. Look at that infrastructure, because not all infrastructure is created equal. And just because there used to be a laundromat there doesn't mean that it is set up to take on today's equipment with today's needs. And just make sure you have someone that can look at that and give you an assessment. Because if you need to go from I don't know, Yvette, from a 200 amp panel to a 600 amp panel, that's not a small investment. Or if you need to, cut new into the floor and redo the plumbing or redo the sewer, or if there's not adequate gas to get everything that you need. Those are things that can add up in a real hurry. So yes, that is a definite benefit of an existing store, but just make sure that someone can look over that infrastructure for you.
absolutely. And back to the comment about the distributor, if you have a good distributor, they would be able to assist you with that. They would know the amps that you are gonna need and maybe even give you some tips on, hey, you've got some equipment and it's running great today, but if you're looking to retool in another 5 years after you buy this place, then you're gonna want to think about this in terms of increasing your capacity. If you have an old store that has like the old lead pipes that where they're rusting on the inside and everything in the and every possible item is getting caught in it underground, then that's going to be expensive and you want to get that taken care of or at least fleshed out if you can't replace them. But all things that are possible and good to be aware of them. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, but just that you should be aware of it and make sure that you're prepared for it.
Well, that's probably a good segue into answering Kelly's question about good pointers on how to vet an existing business. That's just one that's just a great insider tip. Have somebody come out and stick that camera down the sewer.
Yeah.
Make sure that somebody is really taking a look at what's there. And sometimes the things that could be the most expensive are the things that are underground.
Oh gosh, yes.
So
Yes, yes, yes.
that's a
Nothing
pro
like
tip.
removing concrete to wake you up.
Oh boy. So that's a pro tip there. But Kelly, to further answer your question about vetting, I mean, obviously due diligence is an important part of the process. And once you get to the point where probably after a letter of intent, in most cases, you have the opportunity to start looking at the business. And so certainly from a financial standpoint, you're going to want to get your hands on all the records that are available. It's kind of a trust but verify scenario where you certainly want to see what's made available to you in terms of tax returns or, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of lately, Yvette, is now that more stores are using some kind of payment system that allows for some better documentation, perhaps, of revenue that can make that process a little bit more streamlined. But certainly there are a lot of techniques, everything from backing into revenue from looking at utility bills, to a number of other techniques. We've got a great white paper on due diligence and can certainly help you with that. So, yeah, you don't have to believe the seller. There's some things that you can do to try to corroborate that. And certainly there are people that may overestimate or overrepresent their revenue. But I'm here to tell you, in my day-to-day experience, it's just as likely, if not more likely, that folks are underrepresenting the expenses, which impacts the net. And so people tend to understate things like labor, probably number one thing that gets understated. So just make sure that you're looking at both sides of the ledger, and we certainly have some things that can help you. Andrew can probably put our Laundromat FAQ videos in the chat. I have a short video that's just on due diligence and would kind of walk you through a couple of the steps that are important there. So these are all things that you can take advantage of as you go along here. So I think we beat up the lease topic pretty well, but we might as well take one more kick at the cat here and make sure that we can point you in the right direction. So long-term leases are just a part of our industry for all the reasons that we've mentioned prior, the difficulty in moving, the big capital expenditure that gets made in equipment. And if you are looking at an existing store, just make sure that there's enough runway there, not only just the duration itself, but make sure that someone is reading the fine print with respect to the transfer and assignment. Make sure that those future extensions or renewals have rent spelled out for those things. If they don't have the rent spelled out, you could argue that that time doesn't really count because the landlord is going to charge market rates or some other verbiage to that extent. So just make sure you do your homework on all the above. Make sure you have an attorney look at it. Ideally, have someone who knows something about the laundromat business look at that lease for you. And am I overstating this, Yvette? It's just super important that the lease is right.
Oh, I think that's probably one of the most important things you can do. This is not a time to be penny wise and pound foolish. Pay for somebody to look over it. Pay for it and expect it's going to take a little while and cost you some money. But to Brian's point, when we started about being wise to spend a few $100s even for a CLA membership versus, until you spend or before you spend several hundreds of thousands of dollars, this is certainly something that falls in that category too. Yeah.
Yes, I think, and again, most of our members, have had some kind of issue with a lease at one point or another in a learning experience in terms of future stores. So that would be pretty typical.
Absolutely. And I'll speak from experience too. The landlord is probably not going to become more willing to negotiate once you're in there. So the best time is before you get in there. There are some rare things that happen where you can renegotiate things once you're in there, but don't count on it. You want to get it as close to perfect before you get in there as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well said. Well said. And so I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to share some additional resources and also kind of make a last call for questions. We're in the home stretch, just a few minutes left here. So if there's something you wanted to ask us about, now's a good time. We are recording this. We will share out a copy of the material here that you can review. Well, one of the resources, speaking of social media, is our at the CLA Spotlight channel. Yvette has both been a subject and a host, a wonderful host for some of these videos. So if you want to see a bunch of our members in action in their stores and hearing their stories, getting their advice, this is a great resource for you to tap into and subscribe and follow. I think in terms of long form videos, I think we're closing in on 30 of these that we've done throughout the year, including with Yvette and some of her friends in Atlanta that we went to go see a few months ago. So please take advantage of this resource. I think it'd be a huge help as you're doing your research and help you kind of separate the hype from the real deal when it comes to the laundromat business.
Absolutely. And they say like if you're planning to build a house, for instance, then it's a good idea to go into a lot of houses and look at them. This is an opportunity. If you're planning to get in this business,
That's
look
right.
at as many laundromats as possible, whether it be in person or on screen, and you
Yeah.
won't regret it. It'll give you so many ideas.
Yeah, yeah, and you can get a look inside of Yvette's store too. So just to whet your appetite even further, you can kind of see what she's been up to in one of her locations. And certainly through the association, I mentioned some business solutions. A big one these days is insurance. Don't wait till the last minute when it comes to laundromat insurance. It's not an automatic. It does take a little bit of time and effort. Uh, it could be a challenge to get there. We've been doing laundromat insurance for almost 40 years. So it is a specialty that we can help you with, and don't wait till the last minute. Another resource, just as an example, is also our utility and gas buying program, where we've got a member on our team that helps our members negotiate electric and gas contracts in those markets where that's deregulated. So just a couple of examples of things that we can help you with. Our women's laundry network is pretty special and growing by leaps and bounds. And so, those of you that want to connect with other women that are in the same position as you or where you want to get to, plug in with the women's network. There's regular programming, including a holiday happy hour coming up here. I think that's next week. So, go to the website laundryassociation.org and you can get connected on the Women's Network. And it's just a really inspiring, powerful cohort. So plug in and get involved. Next up, I've got too many screens open here. Okay, next up we have our, yes, save the date. So our sort of industry premium event is called Excellence in Laundry. It's coming up in May in Hilton Head. It's a beautiful venue. It attracts a lot of the best and brightest in the industry, multi-store owners. And there's also a pre-session the day before for our women's initiative. You can spend the full day engaged with other women in the business. So registration is open for both. Highly recommend, again, investing in yourself, investing in your future in the business. And May is just around the corner. So be sure
Absolutely.
to get involved. And I know, Yvette, you're a veteran of these events in the
I
past.
will be there. Yeah, I would miss it.
Speaking of being there and don't miss it, I alluded to some of our New Yorkers in the chat that we spent a lot of time in the field, and we're going to be in New York City on Thursday night for our CLA Connect Live. So these are local events. Yvette is almost always at our Atlanta events. So you can look at the calendar to start to take a look at what's coming up near you, or we've had a lot of members just hop on a plane because they want to get engaged with what's going on. But those of you that are local, please sign up for Thursday night. It's going to be a great opportunity. One of our strategic corporate ally partners, Sense, is going to be hosting us at their facility in Soho. So I'll be there, a couple members of our team, and it'll be a great opportunity to meet some folks. In fact, one of our newer members who I met at the Clean Show in August went to this event a few months ago and met somebody they bought a store from. So things happen when you get out there and network,
Just
and
saying. Yeah.
it happens all the time, all the time. So get out. If it not for this month, we'll be doing at least a couple every month throughout the country in 2026.
Yeah, the one in Atlanta just passed. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, if you weren't there, then you missed it for this year, but stay tuned. It's always a good
Yeah,
turnout.
but there will be some more opportunities coming very soon. One of the things that I alluded to too in terms of benefit is that you get one of the first things you get in the email is a link to my personal calendar. And so every day, including today, I do consultations with our members to answer questions, share resources, lay of the land. So particularly for those of you that are new to the business, please take advantage of that. And we pride ourselves on being responsive and making sure that you get all the information that you're going to need to take next steps, especially if you're looking to buy or build your first store. Chi is asking in the Q&A box about finding existing stores for sale. Um, it, it is, there's no perfect method. There is an FAQ video that I shot on this topic, but you certainly have sort of the, I want to say generic listings, but your BizBuy sells, your LoopNets and other sites that carry businesses for sale. Certainly plugging in with the local equipment distributors who may also serve as business brokers is a good resource. Attending CLA Connect Live is a really good way to get wind of what's out there and available. Um, I was just talking to a member again just this morning that just stopped into a store, said hello, and struck up a conversation with the business owner, and that led to them connecting and making a deal. So no one way to do that, Chi. It's just a couple things you need to look for. Isaac, just under the wire here. How do you handle a landlord when they agree to extend the lease, but they cannot tell you what the fair market value is 10 years from now, and thus cannot put an exact amount in the lease? And unfortunately, Isaac, I referred to that a bit earlier. To me, those don't count as years on your lease if you don't know what the price is. And so that is very difficult. I understand. I know what you're working on for your project, Isaac. But if the rent isn't spelled out, you really can't count on it because we certainly have seen exorbitant increases or even landlords looking for a fee to extend the lease or lock in a price later down the road. So that's a tough one. And getting to our last slide or two, a very important one here. Here's our QR code. We're going to save you $100 because we appreciate you spending the last 90 minutes with us, learning and getting involved in the industry. So again, for $500, connect with the professionals, get with the industry leaders, and we really look forward to helping you realize your dream of laundromat ownership, but doing it from a well-informed, well-supported way, and I encourage you to do that. Last but not least, I think I can join all of you in thanking Yvette for a generous 90 minutes of her time and expertise. And I think indicative of the spirit of our association where everyone is very engaged and willing and wanting to help. So thank you so much, Yvette, for spending some time with us and sharing your pearls of wisdom that you've learned over that last 17 or 18 years.
It's been my pleasure, Brian. I always enjoy spending time with you and with all online. It's great to see or know that you're here, even though I can't see you. Hopefully, we'll connect with some of you at Excellence in May.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Yvette. You're welcome, Brandy. Lots of thanks popping up in the chat. So thanks, everybody. Todd, you're welcome. Yi, thank you very much for joining us. Get on board, and those of you that join, I'll be seeing you on my calendar very, very soon. And we'll see you next time if I can figure out how to close the seminar. There we go. Thanks, everybody. Take
All right,
care.
bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.